She did forsake him and their 5 progeny. After a decade's passage, she returned, her heart seized by astonishment at the deeds he had wrought in her absence. Attend closely, for thou shalt not credit what she hath discovered. Pray, share with us in the comments whence thou dost observe. Darius Miller hath ever held a steadfast belief in the bonds of kinship. He was not without flaw, yet he endeavored with earnestness. And for many a year, he believed that sufficed. Upon the break of dawn, he arose to find that Alicia had vanished. Neither forewarning nor discourse did grace the eve prior. Merely a creased parchment upon the kitchen surface, bearing 7 words that linger with an eerie resonance. Alas, I find myself unable to continue this endeavor any longer. She did not merely depart from him, she forsook them all. 5 young souls, Micah, Jaden, Layla, and the 2 tenderest, still too innocent to grasp the weight of the term forsaken. One was yet in swaddling clothes. The other had but recently embarked upon the noble journey of kindergarten. The hush that enveloped the abode on that fateful day was as thunderous as a tempest's roar. The young ones posed inquiries to which he found himself without response. "Wherefore art thou, mother? Hast we erred in our endeavors?" In a moment of uncertainty, he chose to weave a falsehood rather than reveal the truth. He did declare unto them that she required a span of time, that she held them dear, that she would return. Yet the days did transform into weeks. Weeks did transform into months. And Alicia did not grace us with her presence again. What ensued was a tempest of disorder. Darius found himself compelled to relinquish one of his 2 employments, for the burden of child care exceeded the meager sum he earned in return. He scarcely found repose. He did scorch the repasts. He hath neglected to procure the slips of permission. And yet, in some manner, they did endure. With the dawn's first light, the hour of 5 didst arrive, whilst the world beyond lay in tranquil slumber. He would fill a vessel with the dark brew, using the very chipped cup that once brought joy to Alicia's heart. That vessel transformed into a token, not of her essence, but of the existence he steadfastly chose not to let unravel. By the hour of 6:30, the kitchen bustled with lively activity. Flapjacks in mid-air, offspring bickering o'er the privy, and Layla lamenting the absence of a solitary sock. He found himself bereft of moments to savor his brew. Yet, when the melody of their mirth did arise, it encompassed all that was dear. Upon the site of labor, Darius discovered an unusual tranquility that enveloped his spirit. The clamor of instruments and the thunderous engines silenced the anxieties that plagued his thoughts. His overseer, Harold, frequently didst shake his head in dismay. 5 younglings, and thou art yet upon thy feet, good sir? Darius would merely offer a gentle smile. None could fathom that he occasionally wept within his carriage during the midday respite. Micah, the firstborn, did become his steadfast companion. They did ripen with haste, assuming the mantle that Alicia had forsaken. Micah did assist with the evening repast, managed the younger kin, and uttered not a single word of discontent. Yet Darius perceived the burden, the silent glances, the weary gazes. There were evenings when Darius pondered whether he could persevere, when uncertainty clouded his mind regarding the settling of debts, or how he might endure yet another solitary gathering of educators and guardians. Yet, whenever Layla encircled him with her tender embrace and softly uttered, "I love you, Daddy," it bestowed upon him the fortitude to battle anew with each dawning day. And he did strive with great fervor. He did forego the joyous unions, the celebratory milestones, and the ascensions of rank. Whilst others did pursue their fortunes, he did craft a dwelling from naught. Whilst his contemporaries ascended the heights of ambition, he found himself entwined in tender farewells at the school gates and tending to the gentle needs of slumbering children. Lo, a decade hence, when Alicia did vanish, the tides of fate did turn once more. Lo, it was but a common Thursday, like any other in the passage of time. He returned to his abode, cast aside his footwear, and sifted through the customary heap of correspondence, invoices, trifles, and notices from the academy. And then he beheld it. A missive. No mark of origin. Yet the script was beyond doubt, clear as day. O fair Alicia! His heart did cease to beat. His breath was ensnared within his throat. A decade hath passed. 10 anniversaries of one's birth. 10 Yuletides. 10 initial days of scholarly pursuits, all bereft of her presence. And lo, here she stood, extending mine hand in earnest appeal. He did not unseal the missive. Not at this moment. He gazed upon it, whilst his progeny filled the kitchen with their lively presence behind him, chortling with mirth, exclaiming with fervor, quarreling over the final morsel of the savory pie, the existence he had fashioned in her absence. In an instant, it seemed as though a challenge had been cast upon it. The missive remained unbroken for many a day. Darius didst conceal it within the folds of his jacket pocket, near enough to sense, yet distant enough to disregard. In the toil of labor, he sensed it constricting his breast with each stoop to hoist a timber or grasp an implement. He would ponder the act of unveiling it, then cast aside the notion forthwith. He was not prepared for the trials that lay ahead. Then didst another surprise arrive. In the waning hours of Friday's sun, Harold summoned him to the office upon the site. "Darius, prithee, close the door," he spake with a merry countenance. "Lo, I bear tidings." Darius did enter, brushing away the dust from his hands with a flourish. "Forsooth, we have observed thy presence for many a moon," Harold did commence. "Thou art steadfast, dependable, a silent fortitude. We are pleased to extend to thee the esteemed position of lead foreman." Darius didst blink, as if caught in a moment of fleeting surprise. The elevation, greater riches, a remuneration that might at last enable Micah to pursue his scholarly endeavors, afford the dental adornments for Jaden, perchance even substitute their dilapidated carriage. It was the sort of proposal he had long envisioned during those dark hours when the light threatened to fade away. Yet Harold's tale was far from complete. It shall signify extended hours of toil, on certain Saturdays, a handful of nights spent in slumber's embrace. Yet more gatherings shall unfold. Increased duty doth await. Darius didst nod with measured grace. He was well aware of the implications therein. Fleeting hours within the abode. Yet another feast unfulfilled. More gatherings betwixt guardians and educators, devoid of companionship. Increased burdens upon Micah to bridge the voids. He did not provide a response forthwith. Upon that eve, he found himself seated opposite Micah at the humble kitchen table. The rest had retired to their chambers. Upon the couch, there rested Layla's cherished stuffed bear, forsaken and neglected, a silent witness to the passage of time. At last, the kitchen lay in serene silence. "A promotion hath been bestowed upon me this day," quoth Darius, his gaze fixed upon Micah's countenance. Their eyes did widen in astonishment. "Verily, 'tis wondrous, dost thou not agree?" "Indeed," Darius did respond, "yet it doth imply that my presence shall be diminished henceforth." Micah didst pause, then bestowed a modest smile upon the scene. "We shall find a way, father." "Thou hast ever done so." Though uttered with assurance, Darius discerned the gravity that lay beneath those utterances. Micah had borne the weight of this kinship, steadfastly maintaining its bonds for as long as he had drawn breath. In the stillness of the night, ensconced within the solitude of his chamber, Darius at last unfurled the missive. It commenced as though a soul laid bare its secrets. Alicia did confess to her missteps, revealing that she was beset by turmoil in those days, and that her departure was not a matter of design, but rather a spur-of-the-moment decision born of distress. She did discourse upon the art of healing, the essence of belief, and the noble endeavor of reconstructing her existence. And then did the true missive arrive. "I yearn to behold the young ones. I have undergone transformation. Once more, I yearn to weave myself into the tapestry of their existence. If thou canst grant me pardon, I do fervently hope they may find it within their hearts to do the same." Darius gazed upon the parchment, his fingers clasped tightly at the periphery. Reconciliation. For the anniversaries she hath overlooked. For the dark phantoms that once haunted Layla's slumber. For the weeping that Micah concealed from all eyes. For the burden that weighed upon Jaden's heart when his peers inquired as to why his mother was absent from the gatherings of the school. She yearned for another opportunity, yet she had never inquired what her departure had exacted from them. Darius didst fold the missive and laid it upon the table. He found himself in a quandary, unable to reach a resolution. Not as of this moment. The progeny were entitled to the truth. And furthermore, They possessed the rightful liberty to make their own selection. Yet, within the depths of his being, a subtle transformation had begun to take root. And in this moment, he vowed to allow not the tempest of feeling to obscure his reason. For a span of 10 years, he had shielded them with unwavering resolve. And he was not inclined to cease at this juncture. The missive lingered upon the dining table for a span of 2 days. Unscathed, yet not overlooked. Micah cast his gaze upon it with each passing, as if it were a muse beckoning his attention. Once did Jaden inquire whether it held significance. Darius did acquiesce, yet the hour hath not arrived. He sought the opportune instant. Not when the contraption for cleansing dishes lay in disrepair. Not when Nia was beset by the fever's cruel grasp. Not when he was too weary to articulate his thoughts with clarity. At long last, upon the eve of Sunday, he did make the fateful call. The evening repast was marked by a solemn stillness. Layla didst etch forms in her mashed tubers. Jaden did discourse upon a scholarly endeavor of the class. The 2 youngest didst chuckle over a cup of juice that had been spilled. Darius spoke but little. When the dishes were removed, he lingered in his seat. "Children," he commenced, his voice unwavering, "there exists a matter of import that I must impart unto thee." Micah's muscles tightened with an instant apprehension. He grasped the missive and raised it aloft. "This missive arrived by post in the week past. It cometh from thine own mother. Hark, a hush descends. Not a whisper doth escape the air. Not a single flutter of the eye. She doth declare her desire to behold thee. She claims to have transformed. She doth express her contrition." He spoke with unvarnished truth. He did recite the missive with utmost fidelity, each word echoing in the air. His voice remained steady, yet his hands betrayed a tremor. Upon the conclusion of his task, he raised his gaze. Micah's visage had turned ashen. Their jaw did tighten with resolve. "Why dost thou inquire at this moment?" they queried with a tone most direct. Why not a decade past, when her presence was most required? Jaden gazed upon the table, his brow knitted in contemplation. Shall she truly return once more? The 2 youngest remained silent, their lips sealed as if bound by an unspoken pact. Layla nestled into her chair as though she sought to vanish from the world around her. Darius didst nod with deliberation. She extended her hand, yet all remains uncertain. "Pray, lend thine ear to my words, for this matter doth concern us all. We are not an inn where she may simply return at her leisure," Micah declared. The utterances were keen, and none ventured to reply. In the twilight hours, Darius chanced upon Micah in the corridor, his gaze fixed upon a portrait adorning the wall, a captured moment from 5 years past, where all 6 stood united in festive attire, clad in matching holiday garb. She was not present. Micah spoke in hushed tones. Verily, Darius did respond. Her voice, once a melody in my heart, now fades into the shadows of my memory. Darius, at a loss for words, lingered in quietude beside them. In the days that followed, a sense of disquiet pervaded all that transpired. Layla wept within the hallowed halls of her learning, unable to articulate the tempest that stirred within her heart. Jaden, with a curious mind, did persist in his inquiries, leaving Darius in a state of perplexity, for he possessed not the answers sought. Even the 2 youngest, oftentimes brimming with mirth, were more subdued than their wont. The burden of Alicia's missive did permeate the abode, akin to a tempestuous cloud, silent, foreboding, and laden with gravity. On a night serene, as Darius did tuck Layla snugly, she did softly inquire, "Doth mother still hold love for us?" His heart did rend asunder. "Methinks she doth," he replied, "yet love alone oft proves insufficient." Layla gazed upward at him, her eyes wide with wonder. "Shall thou permit her return?" "I know not," he declared, "yet I vow I shall undertake naught without thy presence." With steadfast resolve, he did indeed mean it, for after a decade of binding this family in unity, Darius would not permit the shadows of yore to rend asunder what he had so diligently forged. The abode grew weightier with the relentless march of time. Micah fell into a profound silence. Jaden found himself in a state of disquietude. Layla, once free from the clutches of dark dreams, now silently sought refuge in Darius's bed under the cloak of night. Verily, The very atmosphere that lingered betwixt them bore an air of doubt. At the sight of labor, Darius endeavored to maintain his concentration, yet he fumbled with his tools, miscalculated his measures, and gazed too long into the void of nothingness. Harold did perceive. "Art thou well?" he inquired, drawing Darius to one side. Upon a brief interlude, Darius did at last unveil his thoughts. After a decade span, their mother hath made her presence known, proclaiming her desire to return. Harold didst raise a brow in curious inquiry. What, a decade hath passed? What doth she desire? That is the riddle I seek to unravel. Harold did not press, but rather bestowed a singular, gentle counsel. In all thy endeavors, safeguard thy tranquillity. Upon that eve, Darius found himself solitary at the kitchen table, his gaze fixed once more upon the missive from Alicia. The phrases remained unaltered, yet the emotions they evoked lingered on, profound and stirring. It had but swelled in its weight. Upon the morrow, he summoned a barrister forthwith. Upon absorbing all that had transpired, the vanishing of Alicia, the missive, the weight of emotions, the attorney spoke plainly and without embellishment. For a full 10 years, thou hast held exclusive guardianship. She possesses no entitlements unless a tribunal deems it so once more. Yet should she press forth, thou must be prepared. Such tidings were all that Darius required to comprehend. Upon his return, Micah found himself already a step beyond the rest. I did discover her, as they did proclaim, as a device was slid across the table's surface. Darius did incline his form closer. Lo! There stood Alicia, amidst the realm of social media, her visage aglow with smiles beside unfamiliar souls, yet her words beneath the images whispered a tale most contrary. Pray, grant me assistance in matters of coin, for I seek a chance anew. A plea for assistance, named a new dawn following trials and tribulations. She shall not return to us, Micah spoke softly. She doth return, for she finds herself in dire straits. Darius gazed upon the screen, his jaw clenched in silent turmoil. This matter did not concern salvation. It was a matter of enduring the trials of existence. The morrow found him engaging the services of a private sleuth. I beseech thee, reveal the truth, he did implore. No conjecture, no voids, solely verities. The seeker of truth did incline his head in acknowledgment. Thou shalt possess it. Within the confines of mine abode. As twilight descended, Jaden made his way towards him. Father, if she doth desire to take us, may she not? Nay, quoth Darius, with nary a moment's pause. Yet, what if she doth endeavor? Darius knelt low, meeting his gaze with unwavering intensity. She hath departed. I did not. And I shall not permit any soul to dismantle that which we have so diligently constructed. His intent was true. As the night deepened, he beheld the slumbering forms of all five, with Micah perched upright, engrossed in his tome, Jaden ensnared within the sheets, and Layla tenderly grasping her cherished bear. He hath held this kin united through all tribulations. And now that Alicia sought to rejoin, he would employ every means at his disposal to ensure their safety. Upon the hour of the afternoon on a Thursday, the summons did arrive. Darius, unacquainted with the digits that flashed upon his screen, felt an inexplicable urge to engage in discourse. Upon the instant he discerned a voice, gentle and hesitant, that uttered his name. "O Darius! Lo, it is I." His grasp upon the device grew ever more fervent. Alicia, fair maiden. She did swiftly arrive at the crux of the matter. I merely yearned to behold them. Thus concludes the matter. One gathering of minds. Pray, I beseech thee. There was naught but a plea for mercy this time, steeped in despair. Darius did not hasten to reply. He allowed her utterances to linger in the stillness. At last, he did utter his words. If they choose not to behold thy presence, then thus it concludes. There is no weight upon thy shoulders. No unexpected turns. She paused in her deliberation. Verily, he chose the very spot with his own hand. A verdant expanse for the gathering of souls. Known well. Unbiased. A realm where one might find the liberty to depart, should the need arise. Micah spoke but little when he imparted his tidings unto them. Merely inclined the head, teeth gritted tight. Jaden did pose the query that lingered unspoken in the hearts of many. "Must we take our leave?" "Thou dost not," quoth Darius. "No soul doth compel another." Yet they were all of one accord. They were compelled to seek the truth. Upon the appointed day of gathering, the heavens conspired to reflect the spirits of those assembled. Gloomy heavens, neither weeping nor fully dry, yet chill enough to stir unease within the soul. Darius didst stand by the pond of ducks, with all 5 progeny gathered at his side. When Alicia did at last make her entrance, she bore no resemblance to the lady who had departed a decade past. Her tresses were drawn back, her mantle ill-suited for the chill of the season. She appeared aged, weary, and drained of vitality. She didst draw nigh with measured pace, her gaze fixed upon the younglings. "I have longed for your presence, dear friends," she uttered, her voice trembling with emotion. Not a soul stirred. Micah did fold their arms across their chest. Jaden cast his gaze upon the earth, lost in contemplation. Layla clasped Darius's hand with fervor, retreating partially behind his sturdy leg. Alicia did continue her discourse. In a realm where shadows dance and paths entwine, one may find oneself adrift, wandering through the mist of uncertainty, in the quest for self-discovery. Upon reflecting on the trials and tribulations that life hath bestowed upon us. Yet her utterances fell upon deaf ears. They rebounded from the long stretch of absence as raindrops do from a slanted roof, cascading and dancing in the air. Then did Micah advance with purpose. "What dost thou expect from us now?" they did inquire. It was not of an antagonistic nature. It was sincere. And Alicia found herself without a reply. The gathering did not endure for an extended duration. There existed neither embraces nor weeping. Lo, a profound stillness envelopes the air, pierced solely by the gentle quacking of ducks upon the tranquil pond. As they prepared to depart, Alicia softly uttered, "I pray thou wilt grant me the chance to attempt." Yet none did answer. Upon returning to mine abode, the journey was steeped in silence. The children did not engage in dispute. No soul did extend a hand towards the melodies. The hush conveyed sentiments beyond the reach of mere utterance. Upon that eve, Darius found himself perched upon the edge of his bed, whilst Micah lingered in the threshold, a figure framed by the dim light. "She did not even inquire as to our well-being," they proclaimed. Darius did incline his head in assent. "With great pride," he responded, "thou hast my admiration. All of thee." Forsooth, whatever aspirations Alicia did harbor, this was not the outcome she envisioned. They were not the same youths she had bid farewell to. And in this hour, they vowed not to be undone. The stillness that followed the sojourn in the park lingered on, unyielding. At the evening repast, nary a soul uttered a word concerning Alicia. Yet the burden of that encounter hung heavy in each gaze exchanged. Each moment of stillness betwixt morsels. Even Layla, oft a wellspring of inquiries, remained silent. Micah, in quiet contemplation, perused their device whilst the others partook of their meal. She appeared as though a yearning dwelt within her, they whispered among themselves. Not akin to one who returned for affection. Darius remained silent. Forsooth, within the recesses of his heart, he had begun to entertain the very notion himself. Upon the passage of 3 days, a missive arrived from the private investigator. "Verily, I possess a matter of import," he declared. "Pray, take thy seat, for what I am about to reveal may stir thy very soul." Darius steeled his resolve as the man uttered his words with stark simplicity. Alicia found herself ensnared in a web of financial woes, burdened by a weighty debt that seemed to stretch endlessly before her. With credit cards burdened to their limits, 2 legal battles loom ominously, and an eviction notice hath been served 6 weeks past. She hath traversed the realm of employment, flitting from one position to another, with most of her tenures proving fleeting, oft not exceeding a year. What of the GoFundMe page that Micah did uncover? It was true, and scarcely sustaining her upon the waters. Yet, that was not the entirety of the tale. "Thy name hath been spoken," the investigator declared, "to companions, to the realms of online discourse. It is evident that she believes that mending ties with the young ones may serve to remedy her troubles." Darius reclined in his chair, the device still held to his ear. There it lay, not a fleeting opportunity for kinship, but a thread of hope. He did sever the connection, the tightness within his breast loosening into a chill, a new-found lucidity. Upon that eve, he summoned a gathering of kin. The young ones convened round the table, the air thick with a tender fragility. Darius set aside the parchment, allowing them to behold the verity with their own eyes. "I wish to impart unto thee the truth of the matter," quoth he. "All truths laid bare, no guise to wear." Micah perused the pages in hushed contemplation. Jaden perused the pages, his eyes widening with each turn. The youthful souls nestled against Darius's flank. "In dire straits, she finds herself," Micah spoke softly. "Aye," Darius did respond, "yet not for the motives she professed." Layla didst raise her gaze, her voice a gentle whisper. "Thus she shall not return, for her affections lie not with us?" "Nay, my dear," quoth Darius, encircling her with an arm. She returned, for a yearning stirred within her soul. Yet in this moment, we find ourselves beholden to her not at all. A protracted stillness ensued. The atmosphere within the dwelling lay in tranquil repose. Upon perusing the report, the young ones did not inquire further. They had no cause to do so. The verity hath alighted. Alicia had not yet graced the realm of reconciliation with her presence. She had come back seeking salvation, and Darius had resolved his course of action. As the moon cast its gentle glow and the household lay in slumber, he ventured into his chamber, drew forth the top drawer of his writing desk, and retrieved a substantial envelope, one that had remained sealed for nigh on 3 years. Within lay scrolls, meticulously ordered, softly crafted, and diligently inscribed. The following eve, he summoned the young ones to the dining table once more, this time bearing a revelation to unveil before them. With a measured breath, he proclaimed, "I have held this secret close, awaiting the opportune moment," as he placed the envelope upon the table. Micah didst raise an eyebrow, a gesture most curious. Jaden didst lean forward. Darius didst unseal it with great care, unveiling documents adorned with the marks of authority and the flourish of signatures. "In earnest endeavor, I have been amassing, wisely placing my treasures, and crafting designs for each of you. Not solely for the halls of learning, nor merely for dire straits, but for the assurance of safety." He took a moment to reflect. "I did engage the services of a legal mind, to ensure that none of you could ever be wrenched from my grasp." Micah's gaze didst narrow, a cloud of perplexity shrouding his countenance. "Pray, what dost thou mean?" "By lawful decree, I have embraced each of you as my own." Hark! A hush doth fall. Jaden didst blink. Layla's lips did part in astonishment. Lo, even the tenderest of the young did remain in perfect stillness. I yearned to etch it in eternity. No gaps in the law, no disputes over guardianship, no unforeseen revelations. He cast his gaze about the table. "Thou art mine, by decree, by affection, by every standard that holds weight." Micah didst swallow with great difficulty. "Thou hast accomplished all this, without imparting the knowledge unto us?" Darius didst smile with gentle grace. "Forsooth, love doth not raise its voice. At times, it doth operate in silence, ensuring thy safety, even when thou art unaware of its presence." Jaden's voice did falter, a tremor betraying his composure. "Thou needst not have done so, yet thou didst." "I was compelled to," quoth Darius. "Forsooth, thou art of mine own kin, and I shall ne'er permit another to wrest that from our grasp, not once more." Waters of sorrow did cascade unrestrained. Layla ascended into his embrace. Micah extended his hand across the table, clasping his with gentle fervor. That moment required no melody. It required not the flourish of trumpets. It was the very essence they had long sought, a decade's worth of yearning for assurance. Not the words uttered, but the deeds demonstrated. In the days that ensued, tranquility at last graced the abode of the Miller family. Micah embarked upon a journey to explore the hallowed halls of academia. Jaden hath joined the noble band of soccer players. Layla hath returned to her dance class. The youthful pair once more filled the abode with mirth and merriment. At long last, after many a year, they found themselves unshackled, free to weave their dreams without the specter of interruption looming over them. On a certain eve, Darius did unveil the final scrolls of legal parchment. He had wrought every precaution, the adoption sealed, the coffers secured, and the morrow safeguarded. His vow to them had taken on an everlasting nature. Then a missive did arrive. The script of Alicia, a delicate dance of ink upon the page. It was brief, contrite, and sincere. She did confess the verity, that her return was born of desperation, not affection. She declared her comprehension, vowing henceforth to refrain from further outreach. Darius offered no response. By means of a common acquaintance, he subsequently discovered that she had moved to a new abode, secured employment through a program of assistance, and was endeavoring to reconstruct her existence independently. Thus, the curtain fell. The portal she did forsake hath softly shut its embrace. Upon returning to mine abode, all seemed to bear a lighter air. The evenings of cinematic revelry have once more graced our presence. Joyful mirth resounded in each chamber. And when Micah didst stand in the kitchen one eve and spake, "Thou hast saved us," Darius merely inclined his head in silent disapproval. "Nay," quoth he, "we did rescue one another from the depths of despair." And thus they pressed onward, emboldened, enlightened, and steadfast in their resolve. Forsooth, this was not the kin that Alicia did forsake. This was the kin that Darius did forge. Darius did not merely rear 5 offspring in solitude. He laid a steadfast groundwork upon which they might endure through the ages. In the throes of sorrow, through trials and steadfast resolve, he demonstrated that true affection is not gauged by extravagant displays, but rather by the unwavering presence in each passing day. He sought not the accolades of men. He required them intact, secure, and unbound. And in the final act, he bestowed upon his offspring that which their mother could not provide, a steadfast refuge unbound by stipulations, and an affection that knew no bounds. Pray, allow me to inquire, what course of action wouldst thou take if a figure from thine own yesteryears were to reappear, after a long silence, beseeching thee for another opportunity? Pray, share thy thoughts in the comments below. If this tale hath stirred thy soul, ignited thy spirit, or brought to mind the strength of kinship, prithee, do not forget to bestow thy favor, share with others, and subscribe for more indelible narratives such as this. Gratitude for thine attentive gaze, and we shall meet again in the next tale to unfold.